Doesn't come with a great connotation. He's known as the betrayer. But there's another man too that we know that we don't think of in the same way. Peter, the Apostle Peter. We see him as a good man. We see Judas as probably this ugly guy who was just evil his whole life. I mean, he betrayed Jesus. But I want to talk about Peter for a little bit. Because maybe you see Peter and you think, man, he's a lot more like me. He is, just maybe not the way you think. You see, Peter, though he was the first chosen among the disciples, it wasn't because he was smart. It wasn't because he was wise. It wasn't because he had great faith. He had the opposite of all those things. You see, many times in the Gospels, we see Peter fail time and time and time again. So many times he's trying to prove to Jesus he has this great faith. And Jesus points to this woman who's a Gentile who knows nothing and says, this is a person who has great faith. You have such little faith. We see Peter calling out to Christ when he's on the boat. He sees Jesus walking on that water and he says, if it's you, Lord, command me to come and I'll come out there. And Peter goes out there, but he falls. He walks for a bit, but he falls. And we all think, oh, Peter just needed to have more faith. Would any of you walk out on water? I think not. But time and time again, we see this man Peter, who so bravely and passionately declares that he would never leave Jesus. But we also see him doing foolish things. Jesus preaches about his coming death, and Peter, thinking it's wise, takes Jesus aside and says, what are you saying? May it never be so. You cannot die. Thinking that he knew better than Jesus. And Jesus rebukes him and says, get behind me, Satan. You do not understand the things that which I have been appointed to do. We see at the Passover, Jesus is explaining what he's come to do. And he also explains this, that all of his disciples will go away and flee, and they would run from him. And Peter stands up and says, not me, Lord, not me. I will follow you if I have to go to prison or if I have to go to death. Well, many of us know what happened after that. Peter, when Jesus is approached in the garden by the soldiers, he ends up fleeing and running away just like the other disciples. But he does follow Jesus. And he sees Jesus being tried in that court. He sees Jesus being tried. And afterwards there are people saying, aren't you a follower of Christ? And what do we see? He denies being associated with Jesus. He swears and curses and says, I do not know the man. And does this 3 times. We look at Peter with great esteem, but we look at Judas and say, what a terrible person. Judas approached the Pharisees after betraying them, did he not? Judas approached them and said, I have done something terrible. This man was innocent, and you know he's innocent. And he threw the money back at them. But these men have 2 different fates. We see Judas goes and hangs himself. But Peter, when he realizes that he had denied Christ 3 times, he weeps bitterly. What's the difference between these 2 guys? 2 terrible disciples, terrible followers of God, failing many times and in many ways. What is the difference between these 2? Is it that one was greater than the other? No, I would say they both committed terrible acts, terrible works of betrayal and denial. What could the difference be? It's God's mercy. It is God's mercy. Why is it that 2 men that did 2 very similar things and were found to have little faith and denied the person of Christ? It must be God's mercy. And I tell you this the same, you all are just like Judas and Peter. People of very weak faith, little faith at that, maybe none whatsoever. You're people who think you're wise in your own right, but you don't know better. You think you're rich in your strength and your ability to serve. But it is all for yourself. You quarrel like the disciples over your rank in your church and in the kingdom to look great before men, but you look small and nothing before the Lord. So what is it that saves a man? Is it his works or is it the mercy of God? And I tell you this, it is the mercy of God. You've all lived lives like myself and like Peter and Judas, terrible lives, and have done nothing to deserve the goodness of God. Walking, following the path of the devil. And yet God has turned to many in his rich mercy has said, though you have followed the ways of Satan, you've denied me your whole life, you have cursed me and cursed being associated with me, I see fit to show mercy to you. And that is through Christ's work on the cross. So if there are those among you who claim to be Christians today, your only claim is that you've received mercy, not because you follow a set of rules. If you do not know Christ today, he offers mercy and he requires nothing of you. He says, come because the work has been done. See these men who tried to follow, but just did everything for themselves and failed utterly.